5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff of the Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon. Go NASA, go SpaceX, Godspeed, Bob and Doug.
America has launched. And so rises a new era of American spaceflight, and with it the ambitions of a new generation continuing the dream. 20 seconds into flight, stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
T plus 30 seconds into this historic mission.
It's similar, and yet it's very different to what we've been used to over the years. And, you got to give credit to the SpaceX approach. For years, they were flying cargo to the International Space Station. They began with a design and built the cargo craft with human beings always in mind. And so they got a lot of experience with the Falcon 9 Dragon combination, sending cargo up to the International Space Station. So while this is a first launch with humans strapped inside, and that ups the ante on safety, human rating is a big deal, they learned an awful lot over the past 10 years in those repeated trips to the International Space Station. So, when you hearken back to the first space shuttle launch back in 1981, that vehicle had never flown before. That was an extraordinary test flight John Young and Bob Crippen accomplished in that day. In this case, this is, in many respects, a tried and true system that Benkin and Hurley are riding on.
At 12 minutes, T plus 12 minutes, and we're about 20 seconds from that, the capsule will separate completely from the rocket. I want to just listen in for a second to see if we can hear some of that communication.
That separation event should be coming up shortly. Then they'll begin a series of checks on the Draco thrusters that are going to be used to maneuver and then power Dragon on its flight to the International Space Station. Standing by for separation.
Expected loss of signal, Wallops.
It sounds like we had an expected LOS loss of signal with one of the ground stations. Waiting for confirmation now of that.
Dragon separation confirmed.
Dragon separation confirmed.
There is a great view right in front of you of Dragon separating.
Separation confirmed.
And there's that call out. Dragon is now officially making its way to the International Space Station today.
Dragon SpaceX with that separation call. We have a few words.
The second stage of the Falcon 9 rocket drifting back down to Earth. The capsule is on its own. Scott Kelly, an incredible moment to witness. I have to imagine for you, as someone who's hitched a ride on a Soyuz, a Russian rocket before, this looks to be traveling in a little bit more style and a little more comfort here.
Yeah, definitely a bigger coolness factor when you look at the blue lights and the spacesuits. Different than the Soyuz, although any rocket you fly into space is definitely cool. This is a little bit extra special, I think.
And it was, what, $86 million a pop there on the Soyuz. This coming from U.S. soil, putting Americans up into the air. They have a 19-hour ride at this point, Miles, to the International Space Station. And it's interesting. They don't know how long they're going to stay. At this point, it's anywhere from a month to 3 months. NASA has yet to decide how long they'll stay up there.
Yeah, it's a test flight. That's the important thing that we've been trying to get across here. But hey, you've got two guys who are up at the space station. The space station currently has one U.S. astronaut, and the U.S. side of the house could use a little bit of help. So why not stay there for a reasonable period of time? The limiting factor, I'm told, is the solar arrays themselves. They will degrade in orbit, and their functionality will degrade somewhat. So they'll be watching that very carefully to see how long they can stay, maybe upwards of 120 days. The other thing that's important is the Crew Dragon, the next flight. The official crew flight is slated for August 30th. They want to get this craft back in time to look at it very carefully, pick it apart like a Thanksgiving turkey, make sure there aren't any problems that need to be addressed before they give a green light for that next mission on August 30th. So those are the things they'll be thinking about. But in the meantime, Benkin and Hurley will have a big to-do list on the International Space Station.
No question about that. Also joining us now is astronaut Jessica Meir. And I understand you've only been down on Earth since the middle of April. First of all, welcome back. Nice to have you here. I did get a chance to speak with you when you were on the International Space Station. You're watching the way you might get there the next time. So I wonder what your feelings are at this moment.
Yeah, that's right. Well, thank you very much. I am still readjusting to life back here on Earth, and I gotta say, a little bit jealous of Bob and Chunky right now because I would much rather still be floating. But this is incredibly exciting for all of us, especially for those of us in the astronaut office. We now have yet another vehicle of getting humans to space. So that is really a great thing for everybody on the planet, particularly exciting from a national pride standpoint to be launching from the U.S. again. We'll still be continuing those international partnerships, and I wouldn't have traded that time in Russia for anything in the world. That will be an important part of our space journey still going forward, but it is great news that we will now have several vehicles, hopefully another one coming online soon with Boeing to get humans to space.
Jessica and Scott, I want to ask you both a question right now that has to do with the moment that we're in, because this is a shared experience that we're enjoying right now as Americans, watching a first in space right now, and that's wonderful. And it fills us all, I think, with pride and joy. But it is not a joyful moment overall in the country right now. There's immense difficulty on the ground. And so, Scott, I want to put it first to you. What's it like to be in space? What's it like to have that physical separation from the people and the planet when things are going on that are painful like this?
Yeah, so I had a very painful moment in my spaceflight career on my first long-duration flight. My sister-in-law, Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords, was shot in Tucson, Arizona, and 6 people killed, other people injured. And it's tough. It's a tough place to be when you feel like you need to support your family, your friends, people at home, and you can't be there. But both Bob and Doug are professionals. I've known them for 20 years. And, they'll be able to separate, what's going on the planet from their professional responsibilities. And that's what I had to do when Gabby was shot. It's not easy, but, they'll handle it like the professionals they are.
Jessica, I want to know if you can reflect on that for a moment, given the fact that you were up in space for a period of time after the pandemic here started.
Yeah, that is right. It was actually quite a surreal feeling for us on board the space station to watch this situation be unfolding beneath us. And particularly given that we were still going about our normal workday. So we were very busy, nothing changed with our operations on board. And of course, that's not to say that everything hadn't changed for the NASA ground control team, really a testament to them of how they handled things. I mean, they were setting up a separate control room in order to keep each other safe and still maintain our continuous operations. So it was really seamless to us. If we hadn't been watching the news or talking to family and friends, we wouldn't have even known what was happening. But it really was this stark contrast. I'm looking out the window and the Earth looks equally as stunning as it did the day before, as everything is happening here. And we know that we are the only 3 humans of the 7.5 billion humans on the Earth that aren't currently affected by it. So it was a very strange situation and a difficult one for us to process, particularly for my crewmate, Drew Morgan. He's actually a physician as well. So for us, for both of us to see, and especially for him to see all of the medical care personnel and all of the frontline workers really risking everything to keep people safe and keep people healthy, it was a little bit difficult for us to not be able to contribute anything to that and to be watching it all from above.
As you can see on our screen right now, historian Douglas Brinkley joins us now as well. And Doug, the entire Apollo program took place during one of the most tumultuous periods in U.S. history. You're talking about the late 60s and early 70s. You're talking about Vietnam. You're talking about riots on the streets. So the space program has a long history of being something that is happening at the same time as the country is going through a difficult period. And here we are again in 2020 in such a moment.
Yes, we are. I mean, I think we just witnessed a new golden age in space exploration. When John F. Kennedy was president, Alan Shepard became the first American in space. And on this, the crew, right before takeoff right now, said, let's light this candle. That was a kudo to the Mercury program. That was Alan Shepard said that when we put our first human in space in 61. But Alan Shepard was only up in space for 14.8 minutes, meaning up and down. So you can declare a success by the time we retrieved him in the Atlantic. Now it's a lot of weight. This could go on for weeks and months, so you don't want to pop the champagne too quickly. But space, as you mentioned, became a great diversion from the tumultuous 60s. I mean, 4.4% of our national budget went to NASA in the 60s. Today, it's a third of 1%. So we would see rioting and assassinations and Vietnam protests, hawks and doves, and somehow the Mercury program moved forward. One astronaut in Mercury, Gemini 2, and then Apollo 3. And we had that grand moment when Richard Nixon was president, when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walked on the moon. And the word moonshot now means American can-doism. So today, I find this is a big a morale boost. That America is back in a very premier way in space, and it's going to be a robust world now on rocketry and satellites going up. This is going to spur even more rocket activity if this is fully successful.